This episode of the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast is brought to you by Patreon and the Gentleman Scofflaw merchandise page. Go to gentlemanscofflaw.com. In the menu, click the support or shop links to help support the show.
You are listening to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast. Listener beware.
Rise and shine, the liquor store is open. I ain't got time for moping. I best be on my way. Well, I still got time to save my reputation. Time to go day drinking in this dirty little town.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Gentleman Scofflaw podcast, the podcast for the rebel and the Renaissance man. I'm your host, Jordan Crowder. Co-hosting with me, as per usual, is the Donovan Fowler. How you doing, man?
Yes, I'm doing all right. I think I scared my dog there. She saw me jumping around to the theme song with the whiskey bottle and was like, uh-oh. He's gone off the rails again.
He's Mr. Hyde again.
She's like, I'm not a service dog, but I'll do what I can here.
That'd be the worst service dog to react that way. No, I was trying to do the pogo, which I used to do in my punk days because I grew up in the late 1970s. But let's start off with a little bit of housekeeping. What do you got? What are you drinking there, Donovan?
Let's see. I have I'm taking. Well, the Evan Williams ran out, unfortunately.
Oh no!
Yeah, I know.
Tragedy.
It's a dark day. But the good news is we do have plenty of a backup Trader Joe's bourbon. Mainly, actually, the specialty Tennessee Sour Mash bourbon, which I guess they can still call it a bourbon, given that it's in Tennessee. I think that's a myth that you can only call it a bourbon in Kentucky. But anyways, it's good. It's got kind of a. Yeah, it's kind of like it has a little bit of a tea-like flavor to it, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's all right.
Well, I've got that I'm drinking here, which you might find interesting, is I've been making this the last couple of days, okay?
It's a rum and Coke.
It looks like it. It's a drink that is cold brew coffee.
Okay.
Mixed with a limoncello LaCroix drink.
LaCroix. What kind of is that? Lemon LaCroix?
It's limoncello, which is like a liqueur type drink that it's supposed to taste like. From Italy. But the combination together, I got the idea from Highlight Coffee in Glendale. Shout out to Highlight Coffee. They're open again right now for pickup. So if you want to get some, they have a thing called it's not an Arnold Palmer. It's a something Palmer, which is cold brew and lemonade. And we got these new limoncello LaCroix, and this week I'm like, I'm going to try that. I got some cold brew in it and mix the two together. It's very refreshing. And today I added just a little shot of Evan Williams to it, and it made for a nice little combination.
Refreshing combination. You know what? And immediately my mind is like, that's a little weird, but I like to keep an open mind when it comes to food and drink. And I understand, I'm a man who enjoys a slice of cheddar cheese on his apple pie.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that and don't even seek to understand it.
I get that.
So,
little sharp, little sweet kind of combined.
Yeah, exactly. You get me. You get me. There's a reason we're doing a podcast together. But who am I then to shoot down a drink such as that? That actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty refreshing.
I'll be looking forward to trying it one of these days.
I didn't think I would like the original, that Jack Palmer, whatever they call it. And then I tried it, and then I kind of got addicted to it. And I'm like, well, what can I do at home that's kind of similar? And then I'm also smoking this is my mystery blend, which in this pouch I just got a bunch of mash of leftover pipe tobaccos in there.
That's hilarious.
And keeping up with I tried to go with, since I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt, I went with a Magnum PI theme. So I've got my old 70s, 80s Casio, and I've got my billiard pipe, which is what Tom Selleck smokes when he smokes a pipe. He's more known for cigars, but
indeed. Speaking of nicotine, have you heard about the raging debate on nicotine and Corona?
No, I don't. Read something about vaping could be really bad for it, but I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. So this all got ignited. Well, first of all, there was a lot of speculation that one of the reasons that, China was getting hit hard, which is ironic because nowadays we don't even know how many people died in China. But at the time it was like 3,000 people or whatever. But I doubt that's true. But either way, there was a lot of speculation about why China and Italy were hit so hard was because they had a lot of smokers. And then just a couple weeks ago, there was some study that came out in France that suggested that smokers may actually have an extra defense against COVID, because I think the theory is, here's the thing. I pulled up the article and it was way too long, but so I didn't get the full gist of what was being said, but it sounds like it's possible that there's something that defends against it. But then people have come out kind of in an overkill way to say the opposite. So just as with everything else in this whole crisis, there seems to be two modes of opinion that are at odds.
It's always crazy with this kind of thing, how it's like the story is age as old as time. There's always going to be two sides to everything. Yeah. But it's like my general kind of filter over the last couple of months is like, if I see a post or a headline that's designed to make you angry or afraid, my default is to just disbelieve it right away. That's what I've been doing. It's just like, there's got to be
at least be like, oh, I'm going to wait for, I'm going to wait. I'm going to give this one a couple of days. I'll give this one a week, because most likely they're going to come out and say the exact opposite.
It keeps changes. But, I could see that. I wonder if there's something to the nicotine aspect of it, that like the effect on your brain and stuff. I don't know that smoke in your lungs would help you with a pulmonary type of disease, but I feel like nicotine has kind of a calming kind of effect or something. Maybe there's something there.
I think the theory is that, when you're smoking, you've got so much going on in your lungs anyways, that there's like this extra defense that's already built in.
Really? So it's like, it's just kind of, it becomes like a catcher's mitt. It's just toughened up to the stuff that can come into it.
To a certain extent. I'm not a doctor. Yeah. But anyways, I just found that interesting. That's not endorsing or denying, but I will say
this is not medical advice. We don't want YouTube to demonetize us.
It did incentivize me to go out and buy a couple of cigars and be like, well, now I have an excuse.
Yeah, that's
other than just, who needs an excuse to enjoy a good stogie?
Nobody needs an excuse. All right. I saw this thing today or 2 days ago that I thought was really funny. Put it in the show notes. This man on Twitter posted this video of this entire herd of goats just basically overtaking his suburb.
Oh boy.
His suburban street. Apparently a gate or something broke down and they're just down in this like suburban like cul-de-sac, and I don't know, like looking at the video, there's probably I don't know. There's a lot there. There's maybe 30, 40 of them. I don't know. There's a lot.
I mean, there are a lot of. Oh yeah, look at this. Jeez,
they're just taking over the neighborhood.
That's more than 40 goats. I feel like that's like 100.
Maybe it's 100. Yeah. Now that I see more of them, there's a whole army of them.
Well, I mean, where the hell is this?
Well, this guy who posted it, he's based in San Jose. So I guess it's in San Jose, and you can see them. They're like eating on bushes and their flowers and stuff. And the guy's like, get.
Yeah, look at this.
It's crazy.
Jeez Louise. That's crazy.
It's just so funny that there's so many of them, but they're like completely harmless. They're just an annoyance. Like if you see that much of an animal like stampeding, but they're just like these dopey kind of.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I planted those flowers 2 weeks ago. Get the hell out. Yeah, no, I mean, it's so weird. I guess it's got to be goat herders, man.
Yeah.
Sleeping on the job.
Yeah.
What the hell? Well, goat herders, do your job.
San Jose, is that like, I'm terrible when it comes to a lot of other parts of, but is that wine country? Is that where they do, like, because I know that they do a lot of cheese in California
I don't
too.
know. Maybe.
So maybe that's where.
Possibly.
I mean, it could be
it's
wrong.
It's Mediterranean weather. So goats, I guess, sort of makes sense. But at the same time, I could see you raising goats most places.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of goats in Mexico and stuff like that. I don't know. Not a doctor, but that is wild. Yeah, it's crazy to see like all the wildlife that's been sort of coming in and out of neighborhoods now that like, or at least when things were really locked down. Now that people are getting back, it's like we're sort of reclaiming our environment. But there were a lot of deer and bears and all that jazz coming into places and just walking around like they own the place. And then what was the other thing? The other day I looked at this article in LA that was talking about the there was like a neon blue tide, like you had like neon waves off the coast of California, and it was all from bioluminescence, which we know about because we were, on the July Go Ruck that we did, the Operation Red Wings Go Ruck. Yeah. You were out there in the surf at night, and you could see. I remember one of the ladies we were with pointed out on my hand, like you could see little, like kind of glowing, like sea creatures crawling around on your hand.
Those things were, you put them when your hand was when you're doing the tunnel of love and your hand was in the sand.
Oh, gosh,
you felt all these little things hitting your hands in the sand.
What was the name of the guy that we were? Was he Chinese or what? Where was he from?
Sato. I think he was Japanese.
It's coming.
It's coming. Yeah.
He would do the tunnel of love, which for people who don't know, the tunnel of love is a wonderful little exercise where you have everybody gets up and sort of forms an arch with their body with their ruck on. So it's extremely difficult to do. And then whoever's at the end of the line crawls through the tunnel of people who are arching their bodies, and you're usually you're in the sand, the water's coming in, and I remember somebody was like crawling through, and was it Sato? Sato. He would just be like, it's coming.
It's coming.
And I was just like,
and he would lift his back up, his back and butt out of the way.
I had a really hard time doing it. Gosh, the dogs are going. We must be being invaded. There must be goats out on the street or something. But basically, Sato was a character. He wore like a button-down shirt and like slacks.
Yeah,
to the go round.
And then he had a ruck that his morale patch just said 30 pounds on it. Yeah, it was just a label.
He was, and then his pictures, his Facebook pictures were like hilarious.
That guy's a badass, but he was just totally in his own world.
Badass, but he was a total unlikely badass. He also was a little bit of a blue falcon in the sense of he would not take extra weight. He was like the only guy who wasn't taking sandbags or whatever. You would ask him, and he'd just be like, no.
At one point, I kind of pressured him a little bit to take something because there was a girl that was carrying something for a long time, and I was like, "Hey, Sato, why don't you take that?" And he goes, he kind of goes, "Me?" And he goes, "Okay, challenge." He didn't speak much English at all, and then grabbed it, kind of mowing through. Anyway,
that's how I'm gonna approach any hard thing in life.
Okay, challenge.
Okay, challenge. But how did we get on this? Oh yeah, bioluminescence. So apparently, I don't know. You can speak into this. So it sounds like all this stuff has been in the surf of Los Angeles, and now it's dying off, which is causing the whole city to stink.
Really? I haven't been out there. No, I haven't experienced it here.
My roommates in Hollywood said that they could smell something odd, and then I guess the smell has been going in as far as Glendale. So
really, I should go. I did notice a weird smell the other day, but the problem is in our neighborhood, like all of everyone's throwing out a lot of stuff, and like the garbage is all backed up, and so the dumpsters are open and overstuffed. I figured it was maybe it was the thing. And then there's other video here on Twitter from the Unexplained, which is one of my favorite Twitter things to follow. And there's like an entire village picking up and carrying a house. And I'm like, that'd be an awesome go
that's some Amish shit right there.
You see it?
Wait a minute. I don't see the video. Wait, the following media includes potentially sensitive content. What sensitive content?
I don't know. It's Twitter.
That's crazy. Yeah. Where is this? This looks like somewhere in Asia.
Yeah. I don't know where it is, but
that's crazy, man. Yeah. They are picking up that house.
Yeah. That'd be an awesome team weight.
That's one. Yeah. Let's guys today. The team weight's going to be this little, moderate sized ranch in Burbank. Going to carry it down the 405.
Moderate sized. Yeah. You know what, Donovan? Having all this cold brew has gotten things moving a little bit for me.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna just take a quick little break, and then we'll be back. But I really got to do this right now.
I think we all know what happens when this goes on.
Men or women, this one's for you. Let me take a second to talk to you about GoRuck. Now, you've heard us on this show talk about their awesome endurance events, which are, great for fitness and team building. But of course, they are known for their amazing gear. Some of the best gear in the world, actually. I myself own a GR1 rucksack for all my rucking and training. I also have one of their 30-pound ruck plates, which is so convenient because I could just drop it in the laptop compartment on my bag, and I have a weighted ruck. It's super cool. But one of my all-time favorite things that they offer are their sandbags. Now, if you've never trained with a sandbag, you're in for a treat. I love that you can keep it in the trunk of your car and take it to the park, and you have a gym anywhere. Ever try doing sandbag man makers with 60 pounds? I mean, you get a fun and very hard training session in really quickly. It's a big bag of suck in all the right ways. Now, even if you're not in the rucking, they have tons of sleek apparel for the outdoors in addition to their gear that is tough as nails and built to military standards. Also, their apparel and gear offer their scars a lifetime warranty, so you buy the item once and that's it. You're set for life. But you know what the greatest thing is about GoRuck? All of it is made in the good old USA, and by Special Forces veterans, mind you. It doesn't get more badass than that. That's right, America. To check out GoRuck gear, go to gentlemanscofflaw.com/GoRuck, and anything you buy through that link helps support the show. That's gentlemanscofflaw.com/GoRuck. Whether it's for your fitness regimen, your outdoor lifestyle, or just, a great bag for everyday carry, you're going to want to check them out. GoRuck, built in the USA.
All right, well, we're back. I'm taking over the reins here as Jordan goes to deal with whatever he's dealing with. I think we all can relate, after a weird mixture of coffee and lemonade and bourbon does terrible things to a man. I didn't know this, but apparently he set up an interview. So let's see if we can get the Murder Hornet on the line.
Hey.
Wow, this is unique.
Hey,
how you doing?
I'm Mo. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I would have expected you to be like have a name like Buzz or something like that. Mo's a little
Buzz. Come on, that's so obvious. Why would I have a name like Buzz? You know what you are? You're being speciesist.
No pun intended.
You're trying to make me into a stereotype of a bee, which I am not. I'm a hornet. A little bit different than a bee.
Yeah.
We're not all the same.
Please excuse the uninvited guests, by the way, who wander in and out of the set. But so you're saying, I'm sorry, you're saying that you're a bee and not a hornet.
I am in the same family as a bee.
Is that true though? Are hornets and wasps? I mean, do they consider themselves all in the same family, or is it more of an Irish-Italian kind of,
think of it this way, okay, right? Everybody in the United States is an American, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah, melting pot. Yeah, for sure.
But you may be consider yourself a Californian or a Texan, or I don't know where you are right now.
I'm in Kansas.
Kansas.
So technically I'm kind of a halvesy.
You're also an American and a Kansian, or whatever you say, whatever you people say.
It's not how you say it. Okay, well,
what do you say?
It's not. I'm not the one being interviewed here, sir. So watch your tone, please.
All right. Okay.
So speaking of the United States, I guess now that you bring that up, how is it that you come to the United States? By the way, seems like you're just bringing all sorts of trouble with you.
Yeah, that was a stowaway situation.
Okay.
Accidentally got into some guy's backpack. And me and my girlfriend, we thought we had settled down in a place for the night. And then, boom, we were in the United States. And, we started a life here. And I like it. But you people are so damn prejudiced here in the United States.
Please. Very good. NSA on the phone. Sounds like you had a little bit of a, found a little bit of a loophole entry there into, the West Coast.
Yeah, it was definitely a loophole, but I'm glad we're here now. Not a fan of all the prejudice. Okay, everybody's calling us.
There you go again with the prejudice. I mean, what can you give me some examples? Because I gotta say, I mean, I could probably cite some stuff that might be good reason for why people aren't exactly thrilled with your presence here.
Okay, you tell me that. Every time you're represented in the media or a podcast or on social media, that you're referred to as a murder hornet. We don't like that term.
Okay.
Like I said, it's ignorant. And we prefer to go by manslaughter bees.
Okay. So, Matt, go ahead and walk me through that. Give me some, because what you do, your job essentially, why you go from place to place is, what do? You go into hives and you behead bees. That's your thing, right?
Well, hey, you might call it beheading. I call it feeding my family, okay? Basically.
What do you take the heads home and you actually
Yeah, I feed it to my kids. My kids gotta eat.
Yikes.
I basically, what I will do is I will stake out by a beehive, and when one is flying to or from the hive, and I am able to capture it, I will take its head clean off, and then I will immediately take it back to my apartment where my bee wife and children live, and I will feed that bee to my children.
So, but here's the problem. Here's the issue that I have anyways. I'm not speaking for anybody else. I'm just, speaking for myself here. The issue I have with what you just told me is that you want to call yourself a manslaughter bee, but it seems like, first off, let's just tackle the first part of that name. Doesn't exactly seem like you're just happening into killing these bees. It seems like it's pretty much, it's an intent. I'm not a lawyer. My dad is. I could bring him in on this, but it seems like you have some intent to kill here.
Well,
and take it easy there. And one more thing is, if you're a bee and you're feeding bees to your family, and I assume yourself, unless you're just going off and finding something else, it doesn't make you a cannibal.
Yes, but that's the problem, right? Is that everybody here in the United States is so sensitive. They're sensitive. They're like,
PC culture, am I right?
Yeah, PC culture. You can't eat whatever you want. You can't eat meat. You can't take a milk from another animal. That's not your milk. All that stuff, right?
Okay.
The fact is, this is a circle of life. This is how most of the world works. We eat other things. And I'm just trying to feed my family. That's it. I'm just trying to feed my family.
But didn't you hear Marky Mark's speech in The Happening? We need the bees. I don't think you're doing a whole. Just to be fair here, the bees, these are productive members of society. Okay, they're going around, what's the word, pollinizing or whatever. I'm not a doctor. They're going around gathering pollen. They make honey, right? Kind of honey I put in whatever. I don't drink tea, but if I had tea, I'd put honey in it. And it seems like they're pretty important to the ecosystem. You, on the other hand, you're the kind of guy who stings, somebody like me in the eyebrow, and the next day I'm dead. So I don't really see any incentive to keep you around, Mr. Murder Hornet.
Hey, what? Hey, I resent that remark. And why would I sting you in the eyebrow?
Well, we already made the Chiron with your name, Murder Hornet, so that's what we got to stick with. I'm sorry.
All right.
We prepped for this, so
you guys are
it's
just,
like that's. I want to confuse the audience here.
I think I should just go back to Japan. Is what I should do. Since I thought I would find a freer society here in the United States, obviously that's not the case. I can't just go ahead and decapitate and eat all the bees I want, I thought.
If you want to live somewhere, there's plenty of garbage islands out in the Pacific that I'm sure you could make your home at. You wouldn't be bothering anybody.
Really?
Yeah,
that actually sounds like a good.
Go take out some flies or something, out there. Just like you'd have plenty to eat out there.
I need the bees though. The bees got that.
But we need the bees. We need the bees too.
We all need the bees.
Yeah, I don't know.
I prefer to eat them. You prefer to put their barf in your coffee.
Yeah, okay. Well, not all cultures are equal, as you can tell. So I guess going along the theme of society these days, what are you doing to stay safe from the coronavirus? Are you keeping your family nice and tight?
Stay safe. You know what I am doing to stay safe from the coronavirus? I am doing nothing. I am going out and enjoying the weather, and I am going to parks, and I am going to my favorite restaurants.
You sir are the problem. I'm sorry, but you're the one going around beheading bees and spreading this thing. And I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't mean to lose my cool like this, but I think
the problem is the U.S. government trying to control the bees by keeping them in their homes.
I don't know if this is the platform.
It all goes back to Bill Gates. It's a pandemic.
Okay. You know what? I think I have, Alex Jones's number lying around somewhere. At least I know, maybe somebody can get it for me, and, maybe we'll put you in touch with him. I think you may have, buzzed into the wrong podcast.
I would like that. Yeah. Very much.
I don't know. Well, we'll be sure to, we'll do our best to hook you up. But in the meantime, please, sir, just don't murder any more bees.
I will not. I will just continue to manslaughter. Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I got to go decapitate a bee right now and bring it to my family. But
don't do it.
I will not be wearing a mask while doing so.
Like Marky Mark said, we need the honey, okay? So just cool it, bro. All right, time for a complete 180. We'll be right back with George Manassa from Rite of Manhood.
Hello, gentlemen scofflaws. Thanks so much for being a loyal listener of the show, and your feedback and support is really what keeps us going and means a lot to us, so sincerely, thank you again. Now, if you're a fan of the show and you want to take your support to the next level, why not support the show on Patreon? We offer all sorts of extras on there, like outtakes, extended interviews, a bonus movie podcast, and behind-the-scenes content. Better yet, we have options that start as little as $1 a month. You pay more for that at a parking meter to go in and grab a cup of coffee at Starbucks. See what I did there? If you're interested in helping support the show, please check out patreon.com/gentscofflaw or click the support link on the website. Again, that's patreon.com/gentscofflaw. We look forward to having you as part of our team. All right, I'm excited to have this guest. I was actually on his podcast last week. His name is George Manassa. He's got a great podcast called The Rite of Manhood. George, thanks for coming on.
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, all the way over in Australia, right? I mean, what time is it there for you?
It's about just went past 5:20 a.m.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's a crazy time difference. I always forget that you guys are in the future.
So basically, usually I get up. My morning routine is about 5:30, 5:45, depending. I give myself a 15-minute window, and it's not too bad to be up at this time. And I love doing the morning routine. It's great to be with you guys. Great to start the day with some solid gentlemen like yourselves.
I don't know about
and a scofflaw or two.
Yeah, and a scofflaw or two. I think I don't remember if it was like last year we started communicating through Instagram or Twitter, and I followed your content and really enjoy your stuff. Let's talk for the listeners and viewers that don't know your background. Tell us a little bit about the Rite of Manhood and how you got started with it and why you wanted to start with that.
Well, the Rite of Manhood, basically, the story goes back to 2017, where I really wanted to see men change for the better. I really wanted men to transition from being a boy into a man, hence the title, The Rite of Manhood. I mean, if you really think about it, our fathers, our forefathers, all generations, all civilizations had the concept of becoming a man through a rite of passage. And I love that concept. It was just a phenomenal concept to think about, that, you can come up with a ritual or a certain series of tasks. Like you look at the Romans, for instance, the Romans undertook rigorous training, and a boy roughly it's debatable, but around the age of 15, he would prove himself through a series of rites and learning a series of skills, which translated into the Middle Ages as chivalry. And at that stage, he would then transition into being a man after a series of learning skills and then transitioning through a rite of passage. So that really stuck with me, and I really wanted to resurrect that very principle, that very concept back in today's modern world with today's modern man. I mean, very similar to the Renaissance, how you guys are working to resurrect the Renaissance God of a man. I'm trying to focus more on the rite of passage to become a man. So hence the practical skills to become a man. So the very area where I wanted to contribute, to men's development was developing a rite of passage. And the rite of passage is through learning all the skills in all the areas of life, gaining them, and then even creating a rite itself into becoming a man. So it's basically gaining practical skills to become a man. I mean, I was really disenchanted with the way, how politicians speak these days. How we talk it's not very clear. There's no practical elements to speeches these days or instructions. Well, you go to school for 12 to 13 years and it's really all about learning theory, and there's no how to do anything. The skills of how to tie a tie, skills of how to lift a barbell, skills of how to date, all the different areas of life, they're not being passed down, and they're not being done, at least not practically. I mean, and that's where the Rite of Manhood was born, where I wanted to take all the skills that men should learn and translate it in a practical sense so that men could listen to my podcast and really take 3 practical tips for the week. I mean, we keep it short and sweet because often when you learn too much, it's hard to make resolutions and come up and strategize. So that's really where the Rite of Manhood in 2017 started. And then I needed about a year to spend more time thinking about it, developing the concept, because you can't just come up with an idea and it's not genuine or authentic. So I need to think more about it, live the Rite of Manhood myself before starting the podcast early this year. And I thought this year was the year, and we took action, the right to creating the Rite of Manhood.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Nice.
It's funny that there's a lot of that theme seems to be pretty common with men, specifically in our generation, or even a little bit previously. Like like our friend Brett McKay over at the Art of Manliness, that he's kind of had a similar sort of story, or like we even had to not a lesser extent, but a different extent, Joel Stein. Like when he found out he was going to become a father, he kind of like went on this journey to learn all this stuff to become a man that he never had experienced before with all his previous generations. Just had it as kind of, not secondhand knowledge. He just had it, it was just ready at the ready. So I wonder why that is. I mean, we could always kind of wax philosophical about that, but there's for some reason a lot of that stuff just got lost over the years.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, if you go to school for 12 to 13 years, I mean, you really look at the whole curriculum. It's all about learning the maths, the sciences, the physics, the chemistry, all the theories. But you leave not knowing how to do your taxes. You leave not knowing how to tie a tie, not knowing how to do any of those real world skills that you actually need. So I was really dissatisfied with the mainstream education system because I don't really think that it's done men a real service over the past, let's say, 40 to 50 years. I mean, we've really stepped back from handing down tradition. I mean, that's something in today's modern world, nobody hands down traditions anymore. I mean, you don't really see a father. I mean, there's a lack of leadership on all levels from men. I mean, look at it politically, look at it socially, in schools, in families sometimes. And that's where I believe we've created that gap between passing what past generations taught their sons, and today we're not teaching or transmitting to our sons and our future generation of boys to then become men. I mean, it's really, it's been thrown out of the bathwater. I think it really came from the social upheavals of the 60s and the 70s.
Yeah.
And sort of everything changed so drastically, so quickly. And really, I think it got lost from there. Nobody handed anything down from there. It sort of got cut between the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and then now we're in 2020. We haven't sufficiently been teaching men how to become men in all aspects of life, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your physical life, whether it's your social life, in any area of life. And not only do we do that, a lot of the time we find theoretical answers, nice ideas, but then men have that second dimension of struggle, and that's where I'm trying to focus, where we struggle to come up with practical ways to then transmit that and even live that in our personal lives. Like, it's easier to say, wake up and start a morning routine, but how do I actually do that? How do I actually wake up? What are some strategies? What are techniques that I can actually take to incentivize myself to wake up in the morning and start my morning routine, stick to my morning routine? Because it's easy to do it when it's a great, it feels good, you feel motivated. I have a podcast to wake up and speak with guys. But it's harder when, it's a cold morning and you don't want to get up, you don't want to do your meditation or do your prayer. Usually I wake up, I spend some time doing meditation and doing a bit of prayer. I do my stretches, and then I usually spend time reading a little bit, and then then I go down to breakfast. So I like order in my life. So that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have the example of men in my life who were able to show me how to do things. It's showing how to do this. It's transmitting that tradition, and that's what we need to regain, not just talk about nice ideas to become a man. Yeah. How do we actually do it? Because it's easier said than done.
Yeah. And what you're talking about, too, is because there's this, like you said, there's this idea of throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Obviously, there were some good things that came out of the 60s, but we threw out a lot of really good things. And almost now, if you go online or Instagram, or there's this kind of superficial kind of where being a man has kind of become a man in a way is become almost become a fashion item. And I'm not completely comfortable with that, but a little bit, where it's become superficial, where it's I've got the whiskey, I've got the cigar, I'm lifting weights, or all this stuff that I think I'm into and think are good things and I enjoy and stuff. But in terms of practical things, it's like there are really some things like that you're talking about routines and discipline and relationships and all this stuff that like you don't learn any of that stuff in school at all. And I guess you're fortunate though if you do have family or some father figure in your life that can help pass on that stuff. But it's definitely that's too bad that a lot of that stuff has to be relearned or rebuilt after years and years of people figuring that out.
Yeah, definitely. Look, Jordan and Donovan, let's just put it this way. Any skills that I learned, I didn't learn at all through the mainstream schooling system. I learned it outside the system. And I learned it from individuals, family, friends who were able to volunteer their time and show me, and my own father as well, by his example. It was in this way that I learned the different skills of how to wake up, how to treat a lady, how to create goals and achieve them in life, and be practical about my approach and taking action with my ideas and my concepts and putting them on paper and then executing them. I mean, you really think about it, it's a shame because how many other people don't have the examples of good men in their life?
Yeah.
How many other people, I mean, if you look at the statistics, I mean, fatherhood, the quality of fatherhood has really dropped. I mean, you look at every single kind of issue in society, it can be traced back to a lack of men being men, a lack of men, essentially. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of boys going around in a man's body, and we need to really take back manliness, and we need to make boys men again.
Yeah, I like.
It's interesting.
No, you go ahead.
Sorry, Jordan.
You go ahead. There's a delay.
Step on your,
We've interrupted each other a lot during quarantine. Go ahead.
We'll fight about it later.
Yeah.
We'll duke it out. It's funny. It's like when you talk about that, one thing that's been on my mind recently in terms of, kind of regaining the true essence of masculinity and what a man is supposed to be about. It's almost like these days there aren't many stakes involved with being a man, as in like it doesn't seem like there's as much on the line for young men these days. It's like, you have a lot of freedom. You can go out, you can party, you can kind of live, like you said, as a boy in a man's body. But sometimes, I don't know, part of my theory recently is I think sometimes you have to kind of dive in to the I like the pipe. It increases thinking power.
It does.
But
there you go. Good
yeah, awesome call. But part of me was wondering, it's like I think for a lot of young men, it just takes sort of a stepping out. Like that's sort of what a rite of passage is. It's like actually like for a lot of cultures, it was like putting your life on the line or, putting your freedom on the line and risking it to actually kind of grow and gain something. And sometimes I wonder if like, young men who are avoiding marriage, young men who are avoiding, having children, perhaps taking on a legitimate purpose in their lives. Like Mike Rowe says, it's like, don't necessarily follow your passion, follow what you think you can actually build a life with. Sometimes I wonder if that's been the ultimate detriment to young men. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, my thoughts are definitely the fact that what you said there is just absolutely right, Donovan. It's really commitment. Men are afraid of commitment. They're scared of commitment. I think that's the underlying problem. But let's then look below the surface. Men are scared of commitment because I believe they haven't transitioned correctly into manhood. They're still living adolescence. And this is the problem that I have personally with youth culture. There's nothing wrong with celebrating youth. There's nothing wrong with spending time with young people. But when it's done exclusively to the exclusion of spending time with people who are older than you and have wisdom and can teach you a lot, and where you don't put yourself in a bubble of just young people, this youth culture has pushed and encouraged men to stay young. I mean, this stay young culture where, we don't want to grow up. We want to be at 30 years old and we want to stay in our mum's basement playing video games. We want to put off marriage.
Yep.
I don't play games anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. It is funny how and I, like, even to a certain extent, like, I know a lot of this stuff, but then I realize as I learn and grow how much how much delayed I am in development compared to even my father or the previous generation. It's just like it's really it definitely is a thing. There's a reason why the kind of man baby stereotype exists. I like how you guys are both like wearing like dark masculine colors, and then I showed up in the Hawaiian shirt today.
Hey man, you're peacocking right now. You're like a peacock who, like, shows his feathers and to attract the mate and scare off the other birds. No, dude, you know what? Actually, I'll say this just on a quick side note. Speaking of the 60s, the one thing about the Hawaiian shirt that really redeemed it in my eyes lately, other than rediscovering Magnum PI with Tom Selleck, who is, that mustache, come on, guys, very masculine. But Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he rocks the Hawaiian shirt and he does it really well. So sometimes it's all about just, just got to take a risk, and you took a risk, Jordan. It paid off. You look fly.
It's funny because my wife actually really likes this shirt, and it was a costume, like not a costume, but I guess it's technically a costume. I was in an ad with Zach Anner, who was on last week, where we were poolside wearing these shirts, and I got to keep it after the recording of it. And it's like, I saw it in my closet today. I was like, I'm going to break that out.
Here you go. Well, my first thought was, what kind of vacation are you on at this moment?
It's a staycation.
Stop the isolation early.
Yeah, exactly.
What's actually fun here in Sydney, Australia, in the state of New South Wales, as of today, I think midnight, 6 hours ago, they've issued that we can go from having 2 people in the house to about 5 people.
Wow.
So we've sort of slowly lifted the restrictions because I think we closed the borders and we've pushed everybody into isolation. A lot of people working from home. So I think the numbers went down pretty quickly. But it's to do probably with the fact that we're down under. We're away from you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, yeah. I think things are letting up a little bit in LA. Like there's like conflicting information where you hear like, oh, we're on lockdown for another 3 months, but that just means that they're transitioning over 3 months of opening things up strategically, and people are kind of freaking out about it. But I don't know. I think it's fine for now.
I think people got kind of pissed off because it's like, I mean, I was going to come back to LA. Actually, right now I'm in Kansas City in the middle of the country, and it's much more free out here. Like we don't have to wear masks. I mean, unless you go to Costco, but that's a given. But yeah, you can walk around. It's nice weather and all that stuff. But I was going to come back to LA, but then when they extended it for another 3 months, I was like, what? And I didn't read the details, so you're probably right, Jordan. But I think people were like, I think people have had enough of the lockdown mentality.
Well, I drove by the park yesterday, and literally there was an entire like soccer practice where they were all out wearing jerseys, had their canopy out, like they're coaching. Like no one was wearing masks, no one was
breaking all the rules.
They were just like, nobody. People are over it around here, I think. Probably in Australia too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, humanity is all the same. I mean, here, it's as if everyone's gone back to normal. Everyone's ready to go to restaurants and cafes and it's absolutely funny. I mean, I got to buying a bike finally because people stopped hoarding things. So I found a bike.
Nice.
That's good.
It's good because and a very important podcast that we shot last Saturday with Jordan, how to stay sane with your home buddies. So check that out.
Oh yeah, that's actually that definitely will come in handy for a lot of people. Gosh, I gotta say, like that is kind of one of common themes that I see lately is, obviously this isn't the craziest thing that's happened to the world. We've had way worse than this, but it is like, it's put people on edge. Like people are, feeling a little crazy, I think. And I don't know. I think it stems from probably, kind of part of what we're talking about thematically, which is that sometimes people, I don't think, really build their lives on solid ground. I think it's kind of like a lot of people these days build it on shifting sand. And once something like this happens, it's sort of like we were talking to Tanner Guzzi the other week, who's a male fashion kind of blogger.
Oh, don't say fashion.
And he does other stuff as well.
He's style.
But he's good.
He doesn't
style,
like the word fashion.
Style. Forgive me, please forgive me.
He's gonna come to Kansas and punch
he's
you.
He's gonna strangle me in the middle of the night. No, but he was even talking about how like he really took this time to kind of calibrate and almost shore up some of the cracks in his own life in terms of family and manhood and stuff. Was buying his kid books on classic Greek heroes and all of that. So yeah, some really good stuff. I had a question. What do you think in terms of, you're probably somebody who's studied a lot of cultures. You mentioned the Romans, who that's a really good example. What out of all the cultures that you've studied, as far as like rites of passage and masculinity in the past, what do you find has sort of stood out to you the most?
What stood out to me is, look, I'm personally a fan of the classic civilizations of the ancient Greeks and the Romans. But if you look at different, let's say, barbaric cultures, I mean, the barbaric cultures, let's even look at, let's say, this is a hard one. Now, I'm going to go back to the Romans. The Romans are
yeah. It's hard to beat the Romans.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just have that bias.
Yeah.
It's just the order. I love order, and the Romans were so ordered, and they were a bit crazy at times with their order. I mean, to implement was just nuts. And you go back to it, 15 years old, a boy was transitioned into a man. By 15 to 16, it varied the age, but around that time, a boy would have learned to fight. A boy would have learned to court, which is obviously interact with women. He would have learned how his spiritual skills, obviously worshiping the deities of the time. He would have learned social skills as well. So I look at the four aspects of life: the spiritual, the physical, the social, and let's say workmanship as well, whatever your occupation is, whatever takes up your time during the day. So, and they learnt to develop that by about the age of 15. And then they would have to prove to their fellow peers through a fight or through a certain means, a rite of passage, that they are a man. So there's a pivotal point where, hey, you've gained these skills. Now it's time for the ritual for you to be inducted into masculinity. And it's not as if you're inducted, you're finished, you're done and dusted. That's it. I'm a man. I don't have to do any work. That's not where it ends. That's the interesting. Right. You've just started. That, hey, you've learned sufficient skills, and now let's move on. You have the rest of your life to maintain this status and to be a man, to continuously grow and develop yourself. I mean, it's the problem sometimes with the schooling system is that we're trained to think just because we get an education, just because we think we've learnt everything, we develop an intellectual arrogance sometimes that, hey, I've learned everything, I've done my part, and there's no need to constantly grow on a subconscious level. And masculinity is about constantly growing, developing yourself as a person in all the four aspects that I just mentioned: the spiritual, physical, social, and workmanship. In those four aspects of life, you have to look at how can I lead, protect, and provide. So how can I lead in every single aspect, protect, and provide in principle? I mean, and then we have to proceed to making practical resolutions about how I can take action, actually implement in my life. And not only that, the interesting part is maintaining that. Easy to wake up 5:30 morning and get your morning and evening routine in place, but it's hard to keep it up to date consistently every day at this certain time and keep it up for years and years to come. I look at the next 30 years. What can my, let's say, eating plan be for the next 30 years to stay healthy, in shape? What can I do for the next 30 years? I mean, the problem is consistency. People have problems with really sticking it out. It's not about just sticking it out. You have to know your why, and to be consistent in living your masculine life. I mean, that's just what's really stood out to me. The Roman culture and the Greeks, also the Spartans as well. I think they were a little bit harsh. They throw out somebody.
Their diet wasn't great either. I remember looking at like what they ate, and I was just like, oh damn, this is this is not necessarily how I would have diet. Yeah, life with the Spartans would have been tough. It would have been a really tough ride, but you probably would have gotten a lot of honor and purpose out of it. No, I mean that. What'd you say?
That would have thrown me out.
Yeah.
You're not good enough. Get out of here.
They would have looked at my crooked pinkies and been like, nope, that guy can't hold a shield. No, but it's funny. It's like what you were saying about like consistency and everything. I remember as a kid and even, I fall into this trap in adulthood. I always think of, my development as like that training montage in a movie, like where, somebody wakes up in the morning and they go running and then they're, shadow boxing and, whatever, lifting logs like Rocky IV. And, it's nice to think about, I
Out
have a
of
tiger.
all the Rockies to pick from, it's so funny.
What are you talking about? Rocky IV is like the most iconic montage ever. What are you talking about?
I know. It's just funny.
You beat the Soviet Union in that one, Jordan. Come on.
True.
I mean, but anyways, like it's funny because it's like, it's such a romantic idea to improve yourself over such a short period of time. Like you said, like do the thing and wake up early. But you're right. Like the real substance of it is in the doing of constantly doing it. And that's the hard thing. I mean, that's do
anything for a week and keep motivated for a week. And it would be about sticking it out. But being a man, being consistent in all the areas of your life is not just about sticking something out and pushing yourself. It's about being consistent. It's about making it your way of life. I mean, I think Christianity has a good principle in the word becomes flesh. So where the idea, the principle needs to become flesh, needs to become part of you, who you are, and it needs to be embedded in you that I want to wake up. I want to be this virtuous person, hence virtus, which the Romans in the Latin text, in the Latin context, specifically that, and then it's transliterated into virtue. So virtus became virtue. So a man's basically virtue in all the aspects of life consistently. And so it needs to become a part of you. That's where it's important to know your why. Why do I do something? And that's the importance, I believe, of meditation, of constantly every day think about who you want to be, waking up, living the life that you want to live and transitioning into that. And the problem with contemporary motivation, men's motivation, I'm sure you guys have come across a lot of that, where you can't even go through a YouTube video today without seeing some person trying to sell you a course.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
A course is one. I'll teach you how to get from A to B overnight, quick strategy, quick fix.
Right.
Nice ideas, and it's good. There's always vested interest. I'm always weary of people with vested interest. Someone that's getting paid to motivate you can sometimes work to your detriment because they have an interest to make business from you, and you need to make sure that you eliminate any vested interest as much as possible from the other end, where someone's willing to mentor you to become a man. And I believe in mentorship, that's just another thing to talk about. That mentorship is vital. A lot of people don't want to be told by somebody older and more wiser how to transition into a man. I mean, the perfect mentor is your father. But for a lot of people, I mean, today, they've grown up in fatherless homes. They don't have their father around, or sometimes your father may not be the most perfect figure for you to learn from. And hopefully, but the father is the most important mentor, obviously, to mentor you to manhood. But sometimes you can find other male figures in your life that you can speak to, and they can guide you to become a man and stay consistently growing in your man life, basically. So I think it got thrown out with the baby out of the bathwater.
Yeah.
70s. I mean, really, the concept of mentorship. And what I've really noticed is the fact that schools have less and less, at least here in Australia, I don't know about the States, we have less and less male teachers. I don't know if that's an issue for you guys.
I grew up in Canada, and it was rare that we had male teachers, at least in like in elementary school and middle school, and then in high school maybe one or two, but it was mostly women from what I remember.
It was a minority with me, except actually good question, because I went to elementary school. I went 8th grade. It was mostly female teachers. Then I went to an all boys high school, and that I think it actually flipped, and it was more male teachers who were teaching us, and that was actually that was sort of a time of rite of passage for me, because I was around other guys, and I felt like there was just a big difference, at least in the way that the male teachers treated us. It was much more of sort of it was kind of almost a mentorship principle, where you looked up to them and you were kind of trying to see what information can I get from this person. And I think that came from the age that we were at, given that we were in adolescence and moving into manhood, but also I think that the all male environment definitely affected that as well. So that's a good point. Yeah.
Go ahead. One of the things that talking about different cultures and the rites and stuff that they have, when I have kids, I'm going to put them through this. Whatever that culture is, where to become a man, you have to put your hand in the glove full of ants, of fire ants. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that?
Saying that.
Oh gosh.
Oh man, it's really crazy. There's some
man. You put them up here.
Yeah. That was. There's videos online from like Discovery Channel or something, or some tribe. I don't know where it is, but you have to put it. Basically, it looks like this giant catcher's mitt, and it's just filled with these horrible stinging ants, and you have to put your hand in there and hold it for a certain number of time. Certain amount of time.
Was that the last rite of passage that they complete?
Yeah. Everybody left the tribe after that. The kids were like, "Hey, we're out."
Survival of the fittest.
Jeez.
I heard about this podcast over in Australia. I think it's more my speed.
Yeah, exactly. But it's cool what you said too, like motivation. It's like I was listening to David Goggins' book, and he talks about motivation being cheap. Like it's like it'll get you out of bed maybe 1 or 2 days, but you start to become disciplined when you don't have motivation. You do it even if you don't want to, until it becomes part of you. And that's exactly what you were talking about. It's a great book for anybody who hasn't read it or listened to the audio book. It's intense.
I agree with that. I agree with that element. One of the elements there that you just said there, that it's important to long term.
Yeah.
Most days you won't feel motivated. Who's motivated?
Yeah.
6 days a week. Nobody's motivated to get up in the morning 6 days. There's maybe that 1 or 2 days you have something on. There's something really exciting during the day that you have to get up to. But most days on a practical, everyday level. And here, the Right Man, who would like to strategize with 3 practical tips each week to give men to strategize, and then go and take out your journal, take out your notebook, speak to your mentor, start strategizing about how we can actually put it into effect, because it's easy to read about things, easy to get motivated, take that course, listen to they pump up that nice music in the background. They say, "You are amazing. You are."
And walk across some coals.
Yeah.
And they show you those videos, but really, the reality lies in knowing your why and understanding, convincing yourself, and that's where meditation comes in, where you have to sit down and say, look, I have 5 pounds to lose. You guys use pounds, we use kilograms here in Australia.
It's harder to lose kilograms.
Oh, there you go. I like pounds better. I wish we could switch to that way. Like seeing things.
Yeah.
But the reality is that you have to convince yourself of the why. Why do I need to lose this? You need to meditate on the importance of why, how your life will change after losing those 5, let's keep it pounds, 5 pounds. 5 pounds, and be convinced of that and constantly remind yourself every day. Now, to ignite the flame of you taking action in a particular area, hence starting a rite of passage on a particular area of your life, motivation can help. You can really, watching that video, getting inspired, getting motivated, and even having that guilt, I call good and just guilt, about, hey, look, I've been eating bad, I haven't been exercising, I haven't been, let's say, treating my relationship the best, and I could be a better boyfriend, I could be a better husband, a spouse, I could be a better father, I could spend more time with my family. Having that good guilt and then being inspired initially is a good thing. It gets you started. It's like a little ignition. Mm-hmm. But you can't keep the ignition, you're relying on the ignition for the flame. You have to have kerosene or whatever you guys use in the States.
No, we still use kerosene. We haven't found that magic we haven't moved on to nuclear power just yet with our grills or our barbecues.
I can supply with plenty of uranium, no problem. Uranium rich.
Exactly.
It's using motivation as an ignition. I mean, sure, we have to be motivated and see the benefits. We are human creatures. And sometimes you've got to fool your mind a little bit to start, that little bit of fooling your mind. And then really, but the underlying long-term strategy is that you get initial motivation through a video, through going to a seminar, going to a talk, speaking to somebody. But then you tame that motivation and allow it to mature through sitting down saying, okay, I understand that this is nice, that I'm inspired. Let's sit down and strategize practically with few but good resolutions and what I can do, and always convince yourself why, and meditate why on my journey I'm doing this, to keep yourself mature and not to just take those emotions and just put yourself through an emotional roller coaster. Oh, I feel motivated today. Oh, I don't feel motivated today.
Yeah.
Motivation initially, but you allow that to mature. Let's sit down. Let's actually talk about how we're going to actually do this. Let's be real. Yeah. I think it's just reality. I think sometimes with the excess social media, with excess movies, Hollywood, all those kinds of different areas, I mean, that distract us. I mean, we sometimes don't have a grip on reality anymore. Yeah. I think that's a big issue I've noticed. I don't know about you guys and your thought about that, but what do you think about the fact that we're taken out of reality a lot of the time?
For sure. I mean, it's almost more like, it's more so with stuff like social media and stuff too, because you're constantly living in either everyone's best version of reality or in just a completely, falsified version.
That was also a point that I was going to make. I kind of had this thought flash through my mind earlier, which was when you were talking about kind of the hard skills of being a man, like, when men were growing up, they were passed down to these things that they would almost kind of, it would become part of them. I feel like today it's difficult for some to grasp that concept because we're dealing with like things like the internet, which is a great tool, but it's infinite, like the knowledge just seems infinite. And you're always seeing kind of what's better on social media, or you have the capacity to just learn something kind of instantly. There's so much instant gratification that's found there. So you don't really have the incentive to actually invest in the tools that are more solid and that are going to help you in life. I don't know if that got away from what we were originally talking about, but that was sort of, there is a sense of sort of, I think, a detachment from reality, in the sense of like, when that internet goes away, or when like power goes away, or whatever you're using to sort of prop up your life, reality's going to come fast, you know, like you're going to have to find shelter. You're going to have to find food. You're going to have to find water. I think that's what a lot of people have even thought about with this crisis. And, so it's a question of like, can you kind of stand up to that test?
That is absolutely true. I mean, that was well said, Donovan. And that's very, very true. What you said is very, very important, that a lot of people, as you said earlier, are building themselves on sand. They're not building themselves on solid rock in what's important in life and in reality. And especially social media does a great disservice in the sense that we're conditioned somehow socially to just post about our best self and show our best image. It's sort of like we're marketing ourselves personally, and there's no expression, hey, the negative stuff. I mean, go through anyone's Instagram, any of your friends, anyone, business, personal, will you find a post that ever really speaks about, hey, look, I failed in this area? Hey, it's all about painting this perfect picture that you're absolutely perfect and you got to prove yourself. It's sort of like, you know, you see somebody from your old high school. That awkward. Think about that. You guys have probably encountered people from your old high school, and it's always about, how can I get my best perception that, hey, I've become this great podcaster.
Yeah.
What I like,
school.
What I like is most of my friends from high school, like, are still total trolls, and so it doesn't matter what I post. They remember that I was that, you know, that dorky little kid in high school that was in theater and in the the Christian youth group and all the things that they thought of me. They're like they just keep calling me on it all the time, which is it's probably good to be humbled like that all the time.
Keep you honest.
Little
you know,
punk
that's
kid
what we call it.
with the big horn rim glasses and the puka shell necklace, like that was me. So they'll always remind me of that.
I just had an interesting thought just now. I mean, and let's tap into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Humility.
Yeah.
Humility. Men and humility. What are your thoughts, guys, when I say men and humility together? Well,
I mean, I it's funny that because I've done a lot of kind of research and stuff in the last few years on leadership, especially like I had a job where I was in a role of leadership and was just trying to learn how to be a better leader. And you see that constantly, the idea of humility or being real as a quality of being a good leader, which I think is also, like, I think men are leaders, not that women can't be leaders, but I think that that's a quality of manliness, is being a good leader. And I think that humility is not only keeps you grounded in a way of not getting ahead of yourself or getting too full of yourself, but it also it establishes that trust in relationships, where if people know that there's some sort of human aspect to you, and you're able to humble yourself and admit faults, and then not just like admit faults and not do anything about them, but you're still trying to grow and you're on this journey. I think that's an important part of manliness that not a lot of people seem to learn these days.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd say that, well, you know, when it comes to mind when I think of men and humility, I agree with Jordan, and I would just say that, like, you know, it's admitting fault, but it's also realizing when you don't have what you need, or when you may need help, or when you may be insufficient in your own right, and you can, you know, like you said, it's like humility is realizing, hey, I don't know everything. You know, I'm young, whatever, or I'm inexperienced. So who can I learn from? Like, who can I humble myself and go to and say, hey, I want to learn from you, whether it be your father, whether it be, you know, your neighbor, or a friend, you know, who's a peer. And I think that builds a lot of strength of character And I think too much humility can be a bad thing in the sense of like if you're constantly, apologizing or taking responsibility for things that don't really have anything to do with you, or maybe your extreme ownership goes a little bit too far in the sense of like you don't even think about whether or not it was your fault. You just take the fall. That can be a bad thing.
Extreme ownership.
Yeah. But
actually,
that's
pride.
what I'd say.
Yeah, it would be pride, and I think that's false humility, and that's actually it goes into pride because because there's that. Sure, we don't want to be humble, but when we are humble, we want to exalt ourselves that we are being humble.
Yeah.
We want to show look how humble I am.
Yeah.
And sure, I'll take all the faults on myself. We have that other side of ourselves that kicks in and tells us, hey, yeah, you're a really humble guy, and that has switched from being humility. It disguises humility, it becomes pride.
Yeah.
It's super difficult to strike that balance, I mean, it's like it's especially in the days of social media where everybody, you know that somebody's always watching. Like, that, it's hard enough to post anything, for me anyways, without questioning why I'm doing it. Like, do I really even need to be doing this? Like, what's my motive here? Is it okay? It's a practice. Like you're talking earlier, it's a discipline to really meditate on and to pray about, to ask for the grace of humility. Cause I do believe that that's really important.
Exactly. And what's actually interesting is the fact that we can sometimes, as men, really bypass humility. Like it's sort of there. Like we always want to be right.
Yep.
About everything, and sometimes it's hard to drop our pride. And look, humility is really where it stings, where somebody corrects you or gives you constructive criticism, and accepting that, hey, I'm not perfect, and I need the help, and I need to always improve myself. And that's part of the journey of growing as a man, that we're not perfect, and it's about mastering yourself, who is not perfect. I mean, if you were perfect, what would you need to master? Nothing. I mean, we're not. So the fact that we have faults is the drive, and is the drive of life. I mean, that's what I believe. Yeah. So it's definitely very interesting. I mean, it's a powerful stuff we're discussing here.
Yeah. Isn't it just the worst too, when you think, like, I think everybody's been here, but like, you kind of think like, oh, I've come so far, I've gotten so much better and all this stuff. And, you're looking at yourself in the mirror, whether it's actually or metaphorically, and you're just thinking, I'm so much more of a better person. And then you're humbled by some experience, whether it's you lose your cool, like, staying with family. Like, I've lost my temper on occasion, and I just, have to retreat and kind of say, oh, why'd I do that? Like I thought I was better than that, but that's, I think what you're saying is like, it's the true man is the man who can sort of stumble that way, but pick himself up and say, okay, it's time to, obviously self-improvement doesn't just stop. It's an everyday thing. It's like, you're always, everybody's human. Like, we always have to continue looking at ourselves, but it's every day.
Look, Donovan, you said something before very important, which is hard to get that balance as men, with humility, with shifting, and things come and go, and they disguise themselves as let's say achievements or real humility, but they are actually the opposite. Thoughts, mindsets that come to us, and that's the importance that once, let's say, reach age of 15, a certain age, or 20. For me, it was 21 years old, and you consider yourself at least officially a man, and you set yourself up for success in mindset. You got to constantly be working at it. You always got to recognize that, hey, am I being too prideful here? And that's the importance of having what's called often an interior life, always being in check with your emotions, your thoughts, always meditating, being alone. And that's something else that's probably interesting. A lot of people are scared to be alone. It's as if this crisis personally, I mean, this is not me being falsely humble, but hasn't personally affected me. Maybe because I don't know. I like spending time alone and with people, balanced. maybe I get to work at the office a little bit, but, there's nothing wrong with being isolated a little bit. And we spoke about that in podcast on the Rite of Manhood with Jordan. And a lot of people are actually scared once they're taken away, their phone is taken away, their friends are taken away, or let's say their friends or somebody, their family's there. There's that awkward silence either with yourself or with somebody there that you haven't really connected with. I mean, people are just scared of silence, especially men. They're scared to sit by themselves. Why? What are they going to discover? Something new about themselves? That's why people are scared. I think there's underlying insecurity there sometimes for men because they don't recognize that they have an insecurity or something that's bugging them that they need to improve. I mean, I think the underlying problem is that they're not comfortable in their shoes as a man or who they are in who they want to aspire to be as a man. But silence really speaks to you because, and this is the conventional wisdom of let's say, you look at monks, you look at hermits in the deserts, in the first couple of centuries. You look at them, and I've read some of their stuff. I mean, it's pretty interesting. Once you go into a desert, they often say that you're facing yourself. It's pretty interesting because you have nobody around you. It's complete silence. There's no one to bounce off apart from yourself. And that's the importance of growing as a man, is that you're able to face yourself. It's easy to face other people sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, but it's sometimes easy. I mean, to speak to people, but it's harder to face yourself interiorly and really think about who you are, what you want to be, how did I react in this situation. It's sort of like a recharging mode. So it's important, I think, for men to keep in check on a weekly level, spending about 30 to 40 minutes to an hour, going away, being by yourself and reflecting. That's very important. Taking a journal and reflecting on your thoughts, your week, and reviewing yourself always. And you should always be in conversation, let's say, with yourself interiorly. I think it's very important. It's something that really gets overlooked, and people get very uncomfortable as well.
Yeah. Well, it's so easy nowadays to fill in the blank space with, stuff to do, with whether it's binge watching stuff on Netflix or scrolling through Instagram or whatever it is. You could keep reading on the internet, but that podcasts. Yeah, all this stuff. The stuff we're being part of the problem. No, but it's just that's one thing. Like for me, I've never really struggled with being alone. Like I do enjoy that, but I do know people that don't, and everybody's built differently. I have other things I don't like to do, which is sometimes just being social, meeting new people and stuff. Like I'm one person that, like, when in a social setting, I feel like I need to be on, and there's like an anxiety and insecurity that comes with that. Here we go. I'm being humble. I'm exposing how much of a nerd I am. But there's this thing that my small group leader at our church last year, like there was someone that's been really helpful in my prayer and meditation thing, is that at the end of the day, you kind of ask, and if you have a faith or you're a Christian or whatever, you could, prayer is the way I do this, but you could also do this as a meditation exercise, is asking God to reveal to you 3 things you did right that day, and then 3 things you did wrong that day, and reflect on how to improve it. And you think, like, it keeps you humble, but it also makes you realize, okay, I do have some good qualities. I've done these things. I've made improvements, and here are my blind spots, and constantly keeping yourself humble that way and facing yourself in that sense.
Exactly, yeah. No, and I think this is where the Rite of Manhood really comes alive, that, hey, once we really find those things, what do we do with them? Do we meditate on them and stay meditating, or do we get the pen and paper, sit with the person, and come up with practical ways? And it's actually hard. This is the harder part of taking action as a man. It's easy to sit down, read nice articles about being a man, think about the idea, chopping wood. I love chopping wood. It's winter now here, so it's extreme. I think it's about 3 degrees, 4 degrees outside. It feels like that at least, but it's under 10 at the moment. It's getting colder and colder as you go through the Western Sydney mountains. But wow. It's No, we're in winter. These concepts are good, but it's really about sitting down, strategizing. How can I practically, knowing myself, and this is always being in check with yourself, that, hey, I like binging on donuts. It's binging on donuts at 10:30 at night, right before I go to sleep, and looking at your faults, looking at yourself, and customizing your approach to your situation, yourself. It's good to sometimes, even on my podcast, I give practical advice, very practical. We talk about the concept, we digest it, we understand it, and then we proceed to come up with 3 very practical resolutions and tips that you can then go, but then you'll then have to do a little bit of work. We don't do the work for you. We help you very practically. Excuse me.
That's all right. I want to give you some water, but I know I can't hand it through the screen.
It just gets so cold. Just early in the morning. But it's the first 2-week transition of winter. Now, but it feels like winter. But what's really important is that we give you 3 practical, well thought. We have psychologists, people that are very active in the world. And we come with 3 practical solutions and tips for you to practically implement. But then you got to sit down and do your part and think, okay, well, this tip here may not work for me as well. I need to adjust it. And that's part of always keeping an open mind. Mm-hmm. This is another problem, I believe, with the schooling system, is that it conditions people to think in a narrow way, where we think, okay, well, I got to learn everything from a classroom. I got to accept everything that the television tells me. I have to, if someone gives me a piece of advice, I have to listen to every little bit of it like it's gospel. Always thinking for yourself. Even if you receive advice needs to be filtered through the lens of your common sense and your humility that you may have to adapt to your situation. That's what I believe. And being I'm a big advocate of free thinking. And free thinking isn't just, do whatever you want, sort of this free mentality. It's actually using your brain and questioning things, and not just agreeing with something at face value, always thinking about it, engaging in it. There may be elements of truth in, let's say, something somebody said, and there may be things that you agree with or you don't agree. Always thinking, always getting your mind thinking instead of just blindly accepting things. I think men have done that, and a lot of the media's perception about men, I want to talk a little bit about that, is that we're often that the patriarchy itself and men in society just need to I don't know how to describe it. It's pretty hard. Maybe you guys can help me. It's a perception about men in our modern culture. That you guys find, at least in the States.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of talk about over the last 4 years. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but like over the last 4 years, there's been a lot of throwing about the term toxic masculinity. And referring to like the patriarchy, as sort of this all encompassing entity that is somehow, very negative. And I feel like that's taken its toll because it doesn't encourage men to actually embrace the positivity of masculinity. It only focuses on the negative and oftentimes leads to, even the negative and the positive being mixed about, kind of that way. So that's what I've seen regarding those things here in the United States.
Yeah. There's almost like a reaction to it too, where it's like there's been this negative portrayal of men in media and culture and stuff. And I'm not trying to say that like in a victim way, because I don't like this, like some of the men's rights activist stuff. Like I'm like, just suck it up, man. Like that's kind of how I feel about it all. But but there's also this like reaction to like this extreme reaction to, like we talk about, like the hyper masculine idea, like I'm just gonna whatever I want to do kind of thing, and like I'm a man, like that that caricature of a man, and it's there's definitely this idea of like they've thrown out the baby with the bathwater with that caricature, as opposed to the things, the qualities that are important in manliness and kind of taking care of culture and stuff has just kind of been thrown out. I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of that stuff is the patriarchy idea comes from this idea. Like, you're still like reducing the idea to a stereotype, and then you're accusing everybody of being that stereotype. Like, it's like it's a weird thing. I don't know.
I think what you guys just said there catalyzed with the fact that a lot of men unfortunately aren't free thinkers, where they just nod to the television, not to society, and they just accept stereotypes and perceptions at surface level that are very superficial.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is the recipe for chaos. I mean, then you look at the right-wing activists and you look at the left-wing activists. It's just the pendulum swinging to the left and to the right. I mean, it's just confusion, whether it's people trying to defend, masculinity, but they throw the baby out of the bathwater. And then you have to the left, you have the men accepting the false feminism, I like to call, because it's not really – most women don't identify with the so-called feminism that's often in our culture, where we want to tear men down. Women need to take over everything just because they're women. I mean, it's not like you become you become a politician just because I'm a man. I'm running.
Right.
Just be given a chance. I mean, it's actually degrading. Firstly, if you think about it, to women, it's just saying, oh, you're sort of you're disadvantaged, so we're just going to elect you just because you're a woman. Oh. Isn't that disrespectful to the great women and great roles who can actually prove themselves? I mean, it's to the left and to the right. All these stereotypes, right? I think we have to go back to basics. What is a man? A man is a virtue in those four aspects of spiritual, physical, social, and workmanship. And we have to be that without tearing women down. I know sometimes we can get angry or emotional about how men have been torn down in society and that there's been a great feminization of things, but we have to isolate ourselves from that and really think objectively and clearly that we're not here to tear anybody down. I mean, women are probably probably the most greatest inspiration for men becoming men. I mean, if you think if it wasn't for your mother a lot of the time, how could you become the man that you are today? Yeah. I mean, it's radically important, and women can't be strong, independent women without, let's say, their fathers, brothers. I mean, we're not the same, but we're complementary for each other. I mean, how hard is it to get that? I mean, really, it's just
beautiful thing.
I think most people are waking up to it. Most people in society today, they're fed up with the often political correctness. People are just fed up with that, and people know whether. And so, what you see in the mainstream television and media isn't reality. Again, this comes back to reality. There is no reality in a lot of what they say and what they portray. I think most people, majority of people, women, don't identify with false feminism, and a lot of men don't identify with that false masculinity, patriarchy. It's out and both out to tear each other apart. But I think a lot of people are waking up to the reality that we're complementary. They're going back to basics, and people are recognizing the devastation of all these political factions that, hey, let's just get back to basics, be a man, be a woman, and change our culture and our world for the better for both of each other. I mean, why do you want to become a man? You look at the purpose in our human nature. It's to be that father. And how do you become that father? Without that wife, without your mother, without those people around you, whether they're a male or a female. You're there for other people. That's essentially that sense of giving, that sense of sacrifice. That was always embedded in most cultures, the ancient Greeks, the Romans, all tribal civilizations. And it's radical that we're there for the other. That's the whole point of things. I mean, our human anatomy speaks for itself.
It's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes a little too loudly. But it's funny that the idea that, like, there's this whole idea of identity politics, where everybody has an identity, and it's important to have your identity and be very specific and all this stuff. But then when it comes to gender, it's like we're all the same. There's no difference. Like, so we live in a weird time where it's like where people think things are true for one thing, but no, not in this way. That don't get it mixed up over here. It's just it's a weird time. Like, I don't see why saying that as like there's this. I'm probably gonna get crap for this, but like men and women are equal. There's equality, but there's also they're like you said, they're complementary. They're not the same, and the reason why it's better is because they're not the same. Because it's like Rocky said, she got gaps, I got gaps, together we fill gaps. There's like that's the most basic idea of human existence.
I mean, what are you going to get crap for? I'm still waiting.
Oh, I don't know.
just common sense,
Yeah.
That's what you speak of, that men and women are complementary. Oh, that's what you get crap for.
Oh man.
In the name of science. In the name of science.
It's crazy, but anyway. Well, we've talked a lot, but where if people want to find you, George, and get some more practical wisdom, where can they go for that?
If you want to find me, you can find me on any podcast platform. So the Apple, iTunes, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, we're on every single one. But you can access our podcast blog and our e-commerce store on www.theriteofmanhood.com. That is www.theriteofmanhood.com. And we'll be happy to take, if you have any questions you want to email me, you can send it through to me personally, and I'll personally get in contact with you and answer your questions or inquiries. And that is on theriteofmanhood@gmail.com, theriteofmanhood@gmail.com. If you have any inquiries, we'd be happy to take it. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks for doing this. We'll have to have you back on again. We'll talk about some other subjects. And
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. We'll go to a quick break and we'll close out the show. This part of the show is brought to you by Phoenix Shaving, makers of the most excellent aftershaves, shaving soaps, and all things traditional man. One of my favorite products of theirs are their aftershaves. Phoenix Shaving intentionally blurs the lines between traditional aftershave and classic cologne. Each batch of aftershave cologne is created by using traditional perfuming methods, giving the wearer a high dose of quality skin food matched by the staying power of berry white. Now, I tell you, this stuff is amazing. It'll make your skin feel great after a shave, and the alum and menthol just removes all irritation and razor bumps. They have classic barber scents and even more creative soap and aftershave fragrances. Like, my favorite is the Tombstone scent. It smells like leather, tobacco, and gunpowder. Pretty unique. So ditch those vials of chemicals you buy at the drugstore every month and grab some artisan soap and aftershaves from Phoenix Shaving. Go to gentlemanscofflaw.com/shave to help support the show and get some fantastic manly grooming products. Phoenix Shaving. Shaving outside the box. All right. Glad to have George on.
That was great.
Good guy.
He's a really chill guy. I like him a lot. Really chill. I always love Aussies. They're the best.
Yeah. I think it's the first Aussie we've had, right? We've had English, we've had Aussie. Have we had any other?
Who's the English guy that we had?
Dr. Rowan from
Oh yeah.
London.
Yeah. Proper Brit. No, I think he is the first Aussie we've had. Yeah.
Crazy. We gotta have more.
Cool.
Hey, Rode Microphones, if you listen to this podcast and want to sponsor it, go ahead and send us your stuff. We love your mixer. And it'll take a sponsorship for me to mention the model of the mixer. I'm just kidding.
Wow, you have leverage on that one.
I have leverage.
Yeah,
they're just dying to get advertised on the Gentleman's Coffee Podcast.
They're like, say the name, say the name.
Yeah. So if you want to engage with us during the week and help support the show, go ahead and give us a follow on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button on YouTube and hit that notification bell to know when our videos go up. Also, go ahead and if you want to support the show, want to be a part of it, send us an email, write us a review on iTunes for a chance to be featured on the show. How else can people support us, Donovan?
Well, you can like us on all platforms of social media, and then you can go to our website and you can buy merch. We've got a lot of good merch out there, and Father's Day is coming up. Speaking of which, we will also have a review of certain products for Father's Day coming up as well. So tune in for that. And then on top of that, you can also find us on our Patreon, which I don't think you've mentioned yet, have you?
I have not, no.
I've had too much whiskey. My memory's going. No, you can find us on our Patreon. And in that case, you would go ahead and, throw us what you can. It's always it's a pleasure to serve you. But, if you can contribute, it makes it a little bit easier. And you can get our video feed for the podcast earlier than everybody else. So you join a very special club in which you can see Jordan's beautiful shirt and what George looks like earlier than everybody else. So you'll see it on Friday instead of Monday.
Exactly. Yeah. So go ahead and join that. And also, we've got a giveaway on our Instagram, link in the show notes, giving away Garden of Bali aftershave, courtesy.
That sounds like we should name your shirt Garden of Bali.
Yeah, that's why I wore it.
It looks very looks thematically correct. Yes.
Courtesy of Phoenix Shaving, of course. Go ahead and give them a follow or a like, or check out their website at gentlemanscofflaw.com/shave. Anything you purchase through them will help support our show. Donovan, you are a gentleman in a scofflaw, my friend.
And there's very little whiskey in this glass, but I will raise it to you to say that you are a scofflaw and a gentleman.
Thank you, my friend. And you guys have a great week.
This has been the Gentleman's Scofflaw Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Visit us on the interwebs at gentlemanscofflaw.com.
Captain says his ice on the river. We ain't getting home if we don't break through. So damn cold, I can't help but shiver. Rise and shine, we got work to do.